Now, the purpose of this particular webinar is not so much to demonstrate the product features of the solution set. So if you're interested in that, we do have a deep dive demo that takes place on Thursdays that you can go ahead and take. This is primarily, you have found us here because you are really aware of the need for endpoint management within your own solutions. And to that end, we've created this webinar to give you an opportunity to get the data and the information you need to communicate that need to the people that are responsible for the decisions within your IT departments, whether they be your IT supervisors, your budgeting people, those, all those people that you have to work with in order to get IT budget to do your projects. So the first part of this webinar, we'll talk a little bit about that and give you some tools that you need, some arguments that you'll be able to go ahead and put in your backpack and pull out when you need to convince your superiors and your people, the supervisors that you report to, that you need to spend IT budget on things like endpoint management. So firstly, what we've determined, and what I've determined over the course of years I've been selling IT-based solution sets, is that there's a pretty standard IT project roadmap. And it starts with identifying the problem, figuring out a solution. Kind of that's where you are right now. You do a needs assessment, you do a demonstration. Sometimes if the solution is complex enough, or if it's a big and huge investment, you want to do a trial or a proof of concept for it. And then you get the proposal, you look at the proposals, you purchase it, and then you go on to implementation. And that's primarily how most IT projects work. But what we found, and what I found over the course of many years doing this, is that we have customers that go all the way and get stuck. They run this whole track. They could do everything they're supposed to do, and then they get stuck after proposal. They're sitting there, and they've got a bunch of proposals on their desk, and they don't move forward with a purchase. Now, is that because the product doesn't work the way they suggest or was suggested? No. Is that because they don't think it's important, or their solution isn't needed, or their problem can't be solved by the solution? No. Invariably, and what I found out, that mistake that we make, and meaning we as IT vendors, is we concentrate too much on the feature sets of our solution and not on the reality that you're living through right now in an IT department within your organization. And what does that mean? Well, your day-to-day is packed full of a whole bunch of different things that you need to be concentrating on. I mean, there's Internet of Things, big data, cloud-developed applications and services. You got a whole kit and caboodle of end-user satisfaction metrics that you never had 10, 15 years ago. It was enough to just go ahead and get the tickets, the IT help desk tickets done in a timely manner. Now you have to worry about how customers feel about the way you go ahead and work their tickets and work their troubles. And there's a whole bunch of metrics that we are all paid on now, and that we're all bonused on and all comped on in regards to end-user satisfaction. Even something as important as IT and IS budgets, you have to make sure that your budgeting and your cost of ownership is in line with the solutions that you're trying to go ahead and provide. And there's a bunch of cool stuff like Internet of Things or bring your own device or all these other things that you have going on right now than your day-to-day. And understanding that, we kind of understand that your IT budget, for something to get on your IT budget, there has to be some level of excitement around it. There has to be something that it does, something that it provides your organization as a whole for people to get excited enough to put it on a budget item. And unfortunately, we understand here at Parallels that in terms of project excitement for IT, we're kind of a big bowl of vanilla ice cream. We're good, we're tasty, we work. It's a very acceptable dessert, a bowl or a snack, a bowl of vanilla ice cream. But the problem is everything else in IT projects looks like this. Everything else is more exciting. If you sit down and have a meeting with your technology board and you're talking about end user management, you're seeing a lot of people looking at their watches, checking their email on their phones, doing everything else. But hey, have a conversation about Internet of Things or AI or or custom-based apps that will go ahead and increase revenue. Have those conversations at that desk, and all of a sudden people will put down their phone and go listening. And those are exciting IT projects. Well, the challenge is that endpoint management isn't exciting, but it shouldn't be, and that's the whole point. The whole point is that we're, over the next couple of slides, we're going to go ahead and show exactly what we're talking about as far as why people really need to go ahead and concentrate on what they're looking at as far as endpoint management. So let's take a look at that, what that means. Oop. So you have the Internet of Things, right? You have these things that you are concentrating on: Internet of Things, security, all this other rigmarole, and the challenge is how do you go ahead and get a solution that takes care of a bunch of these? Well, we know ourselves that when you're dealing with endpoint management, there's a whole host of things we can help you take care of, whether it be with security, IT budgets, bring your own device, even end user satisfaction. Allowing people to utilize Macs within your network is a big deal, and it provides them the capability to go ahead and utilize the device that they like in order to do their job. Well, why is that? Well, when we take a look at the problems that you're experiencing right now within IT, the biggest threat there is breach. Breaching of your network, breaching of your resources. Over 50% of networks have been breached. At least that's what's been reported to IBM and IDC. When you get right down to it, 70% of those breaches that happen occur at endpoints. Those endpoints that are out there, both Mac and PC, that are either unprotected or unmanaged, they are ripe for exploitation by nefarious or even unthinking end users in order to try to go ahead and breach certain parts of your network. And here's the biggest challenge that we find. Most of these breaches, actually the vast majority, 90% of the breaches are patchable. For every breach that you have in your organization, there most likely is a patch that's already existing that fixes that security hole that just simply hasn't been applied yet. And that's bad enough in Windows organizations, but what if you have a bunch of Macs as well that you have to patch? So that's kind of the challenge that we go ahead and take on, and it's not getting any better. I mean, there's over 5,000 national vulnerabilities that have been listed in the National Vulnerability Database this year alone, and all of those 5,000. Most of them have patches that are capable of solving and plugging that hole. Are they applied? Have they been applied in your network for your end users? Here's those of you that know Zoom communication. You know, something happened a couple months ago. What happened was that Zoom communication, the third party, examined the application and found that there was a specific bug that hid a web server, their video conferencing web server, hit a web server on those Macs, and it left those Mac users vulnerable to having those webcams hijacked. And that happened. And there were a whole bunch of articles and a whole bunch of things that happened that people tried to get this update, tried to get the patch out there, everything else like that. This is hard enough if it's something public that you know about. But what if you're trying to push out that patch to a whole bunch of Macs within your organization? How do you ensure that? How do you get that done? So why are people really interested in endpoint management now at this day and age? Well, you can see that the total investment of endpoint security is really increasing over the last couple of years. And by 2023, they're stating, and this is again IBM and IDC, they're stating that over $10 billion is going to be spent on enterprise endpoint security. Now, why is that? Well, it's very simple. Those breaches cost your organization money. If you have a breach on your network, you're invariably going to have a situation where it's going to cost you time, effort, and energy to fix the problem that exploitative breach opened up in your network. Now, coming into this webinar, you're most likely a Microsoft Systems admin. So you live in the Microsoft ecosystem. And for the vast majority of you, you use SCCM right now to do things like push out patches and get things done within your organization for your Windows devices. And for your Windows devices, that's great. That works. But So just like anything else, if you have to manually deploy software updates to your organization, there's a way to do that. You can write a script. There's multiple ways you can do it manually. But what if you need to push that same software update out to your um, Macs? How does that happen? How does that happen here with you? You know that Mac users are notoriously private and they don't want their machines to be touched by other people. They want to manage their own updates and all that other stuff. So how do you ensure that those Macs get the Zoom patch? Doing nothing is not an option. You can't just leave those Macs on your network unmanaged. And I know that's a big headache for many of our customers that we talked to at the very beginning. You just can't leave them alone. You have to do something to them. So what is it that you do, or why do you have to do something? Well, if you take a look right here, the desktop market share for Windows in the North America as of April of this year was 70%. And you may think that's great. Windows has a 70% market share. Most of my machines are Windows devices on my network. I can manage those through SCCM. Everything's hunky-dory. 70% is good, right? I get 70% of my network handled, and I'll just handle those Macs offline or one at a time or something else to that effect. Well, here's the problem. The trend is not in your favor. More Macs are showing up in the enterprise. Windows is less and less the majority endpoint of choice for many for many knowledge workers that you're working with right now, many line of business people that you're working with right now. And that's because the vast majority of them would choose a Mac over a PC if given the opportunity. And that's just a reality. And when your organizations are competing, we've got under 2%, almost I think under 2% unemployment in North America or in the United States here. People are picking and choosing what jobs they want. And it could come down to, do you get that great developer that you need to help boost your business? Do you get him or her if you're forcing them to use a Windows Surface device? What if they want to use a MacBook? That's one of the things you really have to think about when you're talking about this. And for IT people, there's a bigger problem. The world we used to live in was all about customer satisfaction. Did the tickets get answered in a timely manner? That was pretty easy. Now there's this whole equation called net promoter, where you have detractors, people that hate the IT department, passives, people who can take it or leave it, or promoters, people like, hey, I got a great experience with IT and you guys should really do it. And these are kind of two KPIs that we're all being held to as far as managing our own departments, our IT departments, right? And very recently, these two things have merged, and what they merged into is something called customer effort. And I could go through a long kind of quantitative and qualitative explanation of what customer effort is, but what it does is it really breaks down to this. It breaks down to, does the IT department make it easier for me to do my job? As a programmer, as an accounting person, as someone who manages a factory floor. Is IT making it easier or harder for me to do my job? And the problem is that for most of us who are in the Windows ecosystem and we are Windows sysadmins, we prefer to work on PCs. We'd rather not have Macs at all. So what do we end up doing? For a lot of us, what we've done in the past, we've just basically said, you can't have a Mac on my network. You have to ask that developer that you're really trying to get, is that going to make it easier for them to do the job you're hiring for? And this is a metric that we find many of our customers are being measured on in their IT departments, and it's hard. It's hard to quantify whether or not an IT department is making easier to do your job. One of the easiest way to get that answer to be in the affirmative is to let people work on their endpoints of choice. That helps a great deal. So you have two options as we see it without Parallels Mac management, without what we provide. You have the ability to manage your PCs in SCCM, and then you don't manage your Mac computers at all, and you just let 1,000 flowers bloom, and you let the customers or your end users decide how they manage their MacBooks. Or you manage all your PCs in SCCM, and then you buy another piece of software, another console, another thing that you have to go ahead and get training on in order to manage those Macs. We call this bad choice 1 and bad choice 2. Because if you let Mac users manage their own updates, I was on a WebEx earlier this week, and we recorded the video of one of our customers, an end user, or not an end user, an IT administrator, who was just informed that 20% of his network end users, which are Mac users, manage their own updates, right? You'd never allow that within the Windows world. You'd never allow a Windows user to manage their own software updates, to manage their own virus updates, to manage their own application updates. That's insanity times two when you're doing it on Windows. But routinely, that is a choice that many IT people and many organizations make on a regular basis. And then maybe you're saying, well, I can have them come in. I can have them ship the Mac to me in order to go and get those updates done. We all know that that's not going to happen. Mac users are notoriously slow with updating their machines or with asking IT to help them because they think they know Macs better than anyone else within the org. So what you're left with is a bunch of Macs out there in your network that you have no idea what version or what level operating system they're on right now. I would bet you $1 to a donut if you went right into SCCM right now, you could show me what versions of Windows you have on your network, how many, what devices are on them, what's their app breakdown, all that other stuff. You not being able to do that on Macs is a challenge and a problem for most of our customers. So what about if I just buy yet another piece of software? And we created an acronym for this. We call it YAPOS, yet another piece of software. Yes, we're going to buy a third-party piece of software that I'm going to install on a server, and we're going to go ahead and manage our Macs that way. Well, first off, which one do you choose? Because there's 24 apps out there right now alone that manage Macs outside of the Microsoft ecosystem through another console. So which one do you choose? What's the value of them? Do you have to get additional training? Is it something brand new? Does it link to anything that you're currently doing right now? Can it link to your help desk system? Can it link to your ticketing system? And there's a serious problem with this. So let's say you decide, okay, we're going to buy another third-party solution, and we're going to install it, and we're going to train people on how to use it, and we're going to get that done. That's the choice we've made, Derek. Well, here's the problem. You already know that 90% of those breaches that happen within your networks already have patches available, right? The patches just aren't getting out there. And you know why. Because when Microsoft issues something on Patch Tuesday, you have to take that patch into your sandbox. You have to test it against the apps that you have, against the images that you have. You have to make sure it doesn't break the CRM, or it doesn't break the accounting system, or it doesn't break the logistics system, or the shipping and billing, or anything else that you're running on those desktops. You need to make sure that that patch doesn't hurt any of that. So it takes anywhere from 100 to 120 days sometimes for those patches to get out into the network. Well, that's just on the Windows side. What if you add an entire application now, an entire part of your organization that now needs to do the same thing in tandem, or as I would say in parallel, with what you're doing here on the Windows side? Now you have another team who's responsible with another console and another interface to do all your Mac updates. How do you manage that? You have to have another meeting? You mean you have to have a weekly meeting with your Mac people in order to figure out what patches are going out where and why and how? I mean, the last thing many of us need is another meeting in our calendar. But there it is, and there's the reality when you have a third-party solution that's a separate console. We say that you can keep calm and you can just do it all in SCCM, and that's what we've devised with Parallels Mac Management. What Parallels Mac Management is it's a utility that specifically allows you to manage all of your SCC or all of your Macs within SCCM, just like you would manage your PCs. You can gain control of them just like PCs. You can have endpoint discovery happen alongside your PCs all at once. You can extend the infrastructure you've already built within SCCM. All the processes, all the skills, all the remediation scripts, everything else that you've created, you can port that over to your Mac side. And you can provide yourself and the rest of your SCCM team with the best Mac management Mac OS management capabilities. That's a mouthful. As you move forward. So what is it within? What is within Mac management? What does it entail? Well, what it is, what it is a full life cycle management utility. It's a plugin that plugs into SCCM, which allows you to go ahead and do everything you need to on the Macs on SCCM. Well, what do you mean by it allows me to do everything I need to on SCCM? Well, just that. It seamlessly integrates with SCCM. What you're looking at here is a screenshot of the SCCM console. If you're in that every day, you know that's exactly what it looks like. You see right up there at the top, there's a little Parallels Mac Management Tools button. We are a plugin that plugs into SCCM. So we are tightly integrated with SCCM. Everything that you have to do to Macs, you do within the SCCM console. Most of the actions are done using standard SCCM dialogues you already know. Now we have extended some of them to provide some Mac specific information. And we store all of the data that we get from those Macs in the SCCM site code database. So if you have a help desk system or a reporting system or something else that you have that's plugging into SCCM right now, just flipping the switch on Parallels Mac Manager opens up all that data on your Macs for you as well. And again, it is seamlessly integrated into the system. Well, what are some of the things it does, Derek? What does it actually do? Well, it does a couple things. It allows you to discover and enroll Macs. So you can find them by scanning the network with the built-in scanning utility against your boundaries. Domain joined Macs can be enrolled, utilizing the AD system discovery. You can even use AppleDep, the device enrollment program, for enrollment and initial configuration. And of course, at the end of the day, you can enroll the Macs by manually installing the Parallels on Mac client. You can do things like enforcing Mac OS compliance. You can use detection and remediation scripts, which are the standard in SCCM, right? You can use configuration profiles, and which are embedded within the configuration items. Mobile config files. You can use those. How about enforcing File Vault 2 encryption on those Macs, and providing either personal or institutional keys on those devices? And you can even escrow those keys and store them within the SCCM database. Inventory and reporting. All the standard Mac hardware and software inventory that you have, as well as all the extended information, such as the logged on users and their session duration, all of the software metering usage report cycle, evaluating software license needs, all of that stuff can now be done within SCCM through the console through Parallels Mac Management. Let's say that you have a new piece of software or a new Mac device that you need up and running. You know that getting new software or hardware and getting it running properly in its device can take a little time. So what we provided is a way to deploy the software to Macs using both packages and applications from within SCCM. The applications are displayed in the Parallels application portal on the Macs. All maintenance windows are supported, and you could even deploy software for either interactive or, wait for it, silent deployment. So no longer do you have to bow down and call your Mac users and say, hey, will you please update from El Capitan, because the rest of the network is on a later version, not 4 years ago, of the Mac OS. Can you update that, please? You just do it yourself. You silently provide them the capability so they come in one day and that's been updated. And that's how it can go ahead and work for you. You can silently deploy updates for your applications, whether it be on MS Office or maybe a custom application that you guys have developed within your organization. You can do all that, and you can have that done without your end users really needing to be interfaced with in order to get that done. How about images, Derek? Well, we do that as well. Ever since the late 80s, early 90s on PCs, where Ghost, I think, was the first product, you could go ahead and push images across the network. That's been a super time saver for larger and even smaller organizations that need to push out images to these devices. And what this is we now can provide you this capability from within SCCM to do on Mac devices as well. There's no longer taking a Mac and spending an entire day putting a new image on it. You can do it through the network. And this goes for even the T2 chips, because we image everything that's before the T2 chips, but the new T2 chips that block NetBoot, OSD imaging is not dead, and we have a fix for that. We have a solution how you can do that. We can manage images, and we can place images on T2 Macs as well as the 2017 and older Macs that are currently within your network. We can enable Mac OS imaging over the network with task sequences, so you can set that up with an SCCM. And we have a custom GUI operating system deployment process that you can go ahead and utilize as well. So if you need to image Macs, you have that capability. We have a customer right now that just purchased Parallels Mac Management, and they are a school system. And they have, looks like it's 8/28. I think school starts for them either today or tomorrow. And they had to take a couple of hundred Macs and image them before school started. And they're done. School starting, those Mac labs are up and running with new images, and they were able to do that through SCCM utilizing Parallels Mac Management. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So let's talk about regular software updates, because we all know that never happens, right? You have software out there on your desktops and your laptops and all your endpoint devices, and they need to be updated. Patches, bug fixes, have to fix the software. There's a dot release of this new version. We need to go ahead and get it out so it plugs that security hole. Well, you can do all that here. Apple software updates are also supported by integration with SCCM using WSUS. We can automate patching with ADRs. You can see compliant, required, not required, and unknown statuses. And if you are used to the right-click create software update process with an SCCM, we don't change it. We allow you to do that on your Macs as well. Many of our customers, when they go through the demo or they do a trial of Parallels Mac Management, they say, this is great, but this is kind of boring. I know how to do all this with an SCCM already. You're not teaching me anything new. Exactly. That's what we're here for. We don't have to teach you how to do a software update. You already know how to do that with SCCM. We're just giving you a way to do it on your Mac devices the same way you do it on your PC devices. It shouldn't be exciting to learn how to use another piece of management software. It should be relatively easy, so you can just get it done, and then you can go work on the more pressing things that you need to within your organization. And one of those things is end user support, right? And how about remote access? Does anybody ever have to dial into a customer's PC or Mac and fix something that they screwed up? Well, now with SCCM and PMM enabled, you can access a Mac remotely utilizing SSH or VNC. So let's say you're that university and you've got a student that wants to download a file that's going to comprise network security, or your new CFO wants to run a piece of software, and you're like, let me see if I can do that for you. But they're in another state. Maybe they're in a Hilton somewhere on a business trip, and you need to get that done. Well, you can access their device via VNC, log in as the root, check the folders, do everything else. That gives you the capability to do that now. So what are the system requirements? What do I need in order to go ahead and run this, Derek? Well, a couple things. You need SCCM. We're a plug-in for SCCM. If you don't have SCCM, well, I probably should have said that at the beginning of the call. If you don't have SCCM, you shouldn't be on this call. We are a plug-in to SCCM. That's how we work. We are compliant with all versions of Microsoft Windows that are currently supported by SCCM, right? Mac OS 10, version 10.7 and later, we manage those. Also, if you want to create and edit Mac OS configuration profiles that the payloads aren't supported by the built-in editor, we can go ahead and show you how to roll up a Mac server in order to go ahead and provide that as well. So what is included with what you provide, Derek? Well, very simply, we provide the software, which is Parallels Mac Management and the plugin. We provide remote installation. We're a subscription service, so all your software upgrades, both dot and full release, are free. We have 24/7, both phone and email support, so you can get help when you're doing stuff. What we don't provide is special training or certifications and an additional console, because you're already within SCCM. You don't have to invest thousands of dollars in training. You don't have to hire new FTEs to just manage your Macs. You don't have to even swivel in your seat to face another monitor to manage your Macs within a separate console. All of that is included within our product, and we do it all within SCCM. So you've told me what's in the box, but what's the cost? This is great, but if this is $11 billion, it's not going to work for you, right? So what is the cost? Well, we like being upfront with this. So here's the back of the envelope math. Here is the thing that you have to think of if you are looking at this solution for your organization. If you are a for-profit entity, a commercial company, you are going to be spending $3.75 a Mac a month for Parallels Mac Management within SCCM. If you are either an educational or a not-for-profit entity, you get the same features, functions, and services for $2.50. So for the price of breakfast, you can go ahead and get that Mac managed, and that's on a per month basis. We enroll our smallest subscription is a year subscription. We're an administrative program, so you wouldn't want to go month to month anyways. If you're going to invest and put a plug-in with an SCCM, you're going to invest for at least for the first year. We do have discounting, though, for multi-year opportunities. Most of our, I was just talking about some customers this morning, 3, 4, 5 years they've been on Parallels Mac Management, and now they're doing 2 and 3 year deals to get a little bit of that savings within their IT budgets. So does this solution meet your needs? I don't know. That's a decision you're going to have to make. I can tell you for these customers it did. For these customers, whether they be government, higher ed, K through 12, we manage their Macs within SCCM utilizing Parallels Mac Management. So I don't know if it can work for USC or if it can work for Samsung or Fruit of the Loom. It could potentially work for you as well. So in a nutshell, what do we solve? What do we do here with Parallels Mac Management? Well, it's not a roll of the dice. We do things right. We plug and play directly with SCCM. We work with your existing infrastructure. You don't have to buy something extra to work with us. We support current branch and legacy SCCM versions. What we do at the end of the day is we control Macs on your network, just like PCs. We also provide you some advanced Mac capabilities that you normally wouldn't have. There's a super short learning curve because if you know SCCM, you already know how to use Mac management, and thereby reduces total cost of ownership. We are a low-cost, low barrier of entry solution to manage the Macs within your organization in an economically feasible way, freeing you up, securing your network, freeing you up from the dangers of worrying about breaches, worrying about patches not being pushed out, and allowing you to concentrate more time on what you want to do within your organization.